Dear friends, fellow liberals, fellow Europeans, it's a delight to welcome you to the ALDE Congress in this wonderful city, Amsterdam. Don't tell anyone else, but if you want to see my favorite city, visit Rotterdam this weekend. I'm especially honored to share this stage, not only with Hans van Baalen and Guy Verhofstadt, but especially with Margrethe Vestager, who is helping smash the glass ceiling once and for all, an inspiration for thousands of women and men. Thank you. Dear friends, I have to admit, I was a bit surprised to hear that Mark Rutte, our Prime Minister, will be here this weekend, especially after his speech at last year's ALDE conference in Warsaw. That was before the Dutch elections. Remember, he said it was time to stop dreaming about more Europe and further integration. How things have changed. As some of you know, we are now part of the same coalition. And last year, I wouldn't have thought that Rutte would put his signature under the most pro-European coalition agreement our country has ever seen. Ever. It is certainly satisfying to see former Eurosceptics change their minds for the better, that is. It is fitting that this ALDE Congress should meet in this very venue. This was the birthplace of the political party that fought and achieved the right to marry whoever you love. 50 years ago, that party put together its first political manifesto in this very place. And I'm proud to call that party, Democrat 66, my own party. Liberals and Democrats, no more than the span of a human lifetime ago, liberal democracy faced its biggest challenge ever. Extreme nationalism consumed this continent. But post-war European leaders were united. Never again was Europe to fall victim to horrific internal battle. Their solution, an ever closer political union. In the post-war years, it was, how ironic, the Englishman Winston Churchill who provided the inspiration. He called for a kind of United States of Europe. And we are now living in the most peaceful time in the history of Europe. But this current state of affairs is not universal, nor is it timeless. Like life itself, liberal democracy is fragile. And we are once again living through a moment of extraordinary uncertainty. Liberal values are under attack. Trump, Erdogan, Putin, ISIS. And within the European Union, we have our own challenges. Brexit, or Poland and Hungary. Countries in real danger of yielding to the forces of autocracy. All across Europe, we are confronted with terrorists. They assault our way of life. Populists exploit the power of new media to fuel the politics of fear. Populists and national parties threaten to undermine what we built after the war. They reject the core values of our free, open and tolerant societies. D66 has always stood up against the so-called Freedom Party from Geert Wilders, against hatred, against cynical lies and scapegoating. Indeed, my party has always strived to defend democracy against threats from within. And throughout the years, Voters have rewarded us for our principled stance. But we cannot lose sight of the fact that Wilders still leads the second most popular party in this country. We need to act now on a national and on a European scale. I believe we must adapt our European Union to the needs of the 21st century. We must rethink, redesign, and rebuild the European project. And we cannot leave it at generalities. We must specify what we mean to achieve. We must decide on specific actions, and we must act together. And let me give you some examples. I'm convinced that we must agree on a genuine European security policy, strengthen our common borders, control migration, and agree on a true European migration policy, effective and human. We need to build a common intelligence system, a common enforcement and unite to fight terrorism and cross-border crime. I fully embrace the very recent breakthroughs on European defense cooperation. Our European defense capability will work together with NATO to protect and defend our continent. Outsourcing our security is no longer an option. Neither can we wait on others to protect our climate. In Europe, we must lead the way in our collective responsibility to implement the most ambitious climate policy in the world. Here in the Netherlands, we have committed to meeting the Paris climate goals, and it's our firm intention to go over and beyond. But it starts with action, preferably on a European level. But if Europe doesn't deliver, our coalition here is willing to do it ourselves. I'll take one example, an air passenger tax. And we have finally established the most liberal and climate policies. The individual polluter will pay. To do all of this, we must ensure that our European budget is set for today's challenges instead of yesterday's economy. We should spend our common funds on a sustainable future, on projects that are better managed in Europe than in each separate member state. Innovation, security, external border protection, sustainable energy solutions. It's as simple as that. Dear friends, lastly, our European Union is not a luxury for the few, but is a necessity for the many. From Amsterdam to Athens, from Sofia to Dublin, every young European should have the chance to study or work in another member state. It should be one of our first priorities to expand the Erasmus Plus program. We must encourage and support the most widespread use of this facility. The first generation that will grow up outside of living memory of European war is in danger of losing sight of the achievements of the European Union. By letting the new generation share in all that Europe has to offer, we will shape the strongest European generation ever. And in order to achieve and win support for all of this, we must strengthen the democratic fabric of the Union. My party was founded on the principle that people should have a say on how we shape the world around us. That same idea has driven our European goal. Now it is time to give Europeans real influence over our common future. Let us start by enlarging the ALDE family so that we can take the lead in 2019. Together, we can work out our most ambitious plans for a truly democratic Europe. And it will not be easy, but we can soon take a positive step forward. Britain's seat in the European Parliament will be vacated in 2019. We can use them for the first experiment in truly European elections. Every European should be able to vote for a European from another member state. But if you can't wait to vote until 2019, tomorrow and today you can vote for Annelou van Egmond for vice president. And if you do so, I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Ever since Annelou took over at D66, we haven't lost a campaign, not a single one. Nine in a row. Liberals, Democrats. In the past year, pro-European liberals have won elections. European leaders have found the courage to offer new ideas. But the anti-liberal forces wanting to pull us apart have far from disappeared. So this is a defying moment. If we want another century of peace, we must act now. And let's start here this weekend in Amsterdam. And while you're here, don't forget to visit Rotterdam. Thank you very much.
Please welcome to the stage European Commissioner Margrethe Vestager.
Dear Liberal friends, it's great to be back together again. I'm very glad to participate in this debate about how to renew our democracy. But if you need to zoom out a little, I will give you my conclusion now. And the conclusion is very simple. What we need to renew is our use of our democracy. The urgency is the engagement. The urgency is not institutional reform. The urgency is not to isolate ourselves with words like interinstitutional relationship. The urgency is to engage with other people. Because the point is not to win over people. The point is to win people over. This is what we want. Because the biggest threat right now is the polarization of our society. If we decide that the others are the enemy, then we're part of the problem. If we dare to ask and to discuss, then we can renew our democracy. The model is very simple. If we dare to dream together, to discuss with people we disagree with, then to decide, and then to act together. Then we build a united Europe that is truly for everyone. And it is indeed needed. Because the fundamentals, the very fundamentals of our democratic infrastructure, the rule of law, freedom of press, separation of power, the freedom to think, to stand, to gather, human equality. These fundamentals are threatened. These are not God-given fundamentals. These are the democratic infrastructure put into our constitution, our treaties, our UN conventions. And these are the pillars that Europe is built on. So it's for us to use them. Because if we let them wither away, then also our democracy withers away. And the amazing thing, the strength of this fundament, is that it comes from decisions where we have decided that these fundamentals are more important than the majority at the moment. No majority can say, oh, but we don't care. Because we have decided in common, in our democratic processes, that these fundamental freedoms are not to be let go by a spur of the moment, by the sentiments, by the populist idea that we can change everything like this. In these years to come, well, I think it's more important than ever that we stand up to decide this. And when I see the work of the group in the European Parliament, I see this. On a daily basis, this is what they do. And working for this, we built trust. We built trust that we are equal in front of the law, that we are treated equally, because that equality and not being discriminated, well, this is what we need. And this openness, this stability, and this trust, this is the fundamentals of making Europe work again. And this is also the fundamentals that has made Europe the best place to live ever in world history, especially if you're a woman. We know that it is threatened. We see it in how the free press, how independent journalism is being threatened. We see the lack of respect of obligations undertaken. For example, in our decisions on, or others' decisions on global warming, on protecting refugees. We see it in hate crimes coming back. We see it when some states interfere in other states' elections via social media. We see what is happening in member states. So we have enough to do to renew our democracy. The thing is that very often we see the bad things happening. But we should find the energy and the enthusiasm and the dedication in the good things that is happening as well. Look what happened here in the Netherlands. The foundation of the Pulse of Europe. The success of ALDE of Ciudadanos in Spain. There are so many people engaging. And this is what we should do to an even stronger degree as well. There are so many initiatives taken. And we can work with them. Earlier this week, I participated in the European Movement's Women of Europe Awards. Not only those who won the awards, but all the nominees were women that worked hard to improve the conditions, the citizenship, the living conditions, the engagement for refugees, for entrepreneurs, for students. They facilitate, and we can reach out and be so much more than just ourselves. And I think this model can work. Dream together, discuss, decide, and act. Just to give you one example, we do dream about a society for all, where the benefits of globalization is not just for the selected few, but is actually distributed. And this has been discussed intensively, also by us in the Commission. And we have decided that one of the things that we have to do is to harness globalization, to make sure that it services people, all people, and not the selected few. And therefore we act. I have the privilege in my portfolio also to be able to give my contribution with my amazing teams. For example, when we see a pharmaceutical company who have done amazing thing, innovating new medicines that help us to live long and live better, but when we then see such a company increasing the price of life-saving cancer drugs with several 100%, then of course we have to act. And it is in the concrete actions we open people's ears. And maybe we also can start the discussion about what we really want. How to make Europe work for us. None of us decides about the world as such, but each and every one of us decide about how we will engage. And we have the privilege that we can engage. We have the rights. We can use them, and by using them, make them stronger. And in doing this, we can step into character. And we can make the European part of our democracy do what it shall do. Give people a chance to follow their dreams, to discuss together, to decide together, to act together to improve Europe and the way Europe acts in the world. In that respect, we can win people over if we dare to engage. This is much harder than coming up with new rules and new procedures and new protocols. It's always much harder to relate and to engage in other people. And since it's harder, it's also so much more rewarding, because this is what democracy is about. It's about people, and therefore it's about us. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Prime Minister Xavier Bettel.
Dear friends, I'm very happy to be here today, and if you have some time, Luxembourg is just 2 hours by car to visit the city. It's really not far away. And with that, you will also be able to visit Belgium, which is even closer than Luxembourg. I'm very happy to be here today for a first personal reason. I just realized that it is my 25th Congress of the Liberal family I'm participating. So that means I'm not 25 anymore. I'm very honored to be here today. I'm very honored to speak in front of you today. And I'm even more pleased that I will be one of 5 liberal prime ministers speaking in front of this assembly. And that's amazing. That's amazing because I remember the last years being very often one of the very few prime ministers assisting to the assemblies. And we have now 5, so maybe next year in Spain, I bet we will be 6, 7, or 8 present. I really believe that we all live for the moment a very crucial time for our societies, for our citizens, for our European Union, and also for us as liberals. In my opinion, the basic principles of our movement will become even more important in the following years, and it's on us to defend them. When it comes to fundamental rights and values such as freedom, tolerance, respect, and also solidarity, then we have to play the major role. And it's on us to make clear that the liberalism is the genuine brand of those principles and values, and people shouldn't listen to cheap copies. It's on us to become vocal, to speak out, to fight, and insist that modern Europe is built on these fundamental democratic values, and these values are the core element of the European Union as the unique peace project we all know, but we also consider too often as granted. And it's not granted. It's not granted, and it's not at all granted. And I belong to a generation who never lived in a war situation. I was born, and I remember telling you my family roots in Brussels 2 years ago or 3 years ago. My grandfather is from Poland, he was Jewish. My grandmother is from Russian, she was Orthodox. My grandfather was French, Luxembourgish, he was Catholic. And my grandmother, she was French, and she was not that much into religions. That makes you a Luxembourgish prime minister. So just to tell you, being able to speak freely in front of you, to live in peace, seems to be granted for all of us. And very often, and I do very often go to schools to explain to people, why do we need Europe? And very often they tell me, yes, but what is the advantage of Europe? The problem is we consider everything is granted. When I come here to Holland and I want to pay a beer, I pay in euro. I don't need to refer to my social security that I'm moving to another European country. I was able to study in Panepestimos Aristoteliou Saloniki in Greece. That's the only thing in Greece I know. And mia vodka portokali means vodka orange. But I was able to study in Greece. I studied Greek property law, I studied maritime law. Yes, Luxembourg has a big river. I studied ecclesiastical Orthodox law. That's the reason why I'm also Minister of Religion Affairs for the moment in Luxembourg. But I discovered a country. I discovered a history. I discovered traditions. And I discovered also what it is not to live in Europe. When I took my car and I went to Istanbul, to Skopje, or to Bulgaria, where borders were closed. We had to clean my car. We had to wait in front of the border, where now, in Luxembourg, if you ask someone where is the border, they don't know, except it's because the streets are better than in Belgium. We can feel it on the tears. This stays internal, okay? I have dinner with the Belgian Prime Minister tonight, so don't repeat it. Now, so just to tell you, very often we do not realize what Europe brings us. I said it now in a funny way, but I have 4 grandparents with different roots, with 4 religions. I was able to study it in Greece. I'm able to get married. My husband is a Belgian, so that's the reason everything is okay. And I work with my colleagues on a peace project. And you should not forget that on the border of our European Union, there is a country for the moment in a close war situation because they wanted to have more Europe, that it's in Ukraine. So don't consider it as granted. We have to fight for our values every day. And we can witness every day and everywhere in Europe how populism can be also successful. And it has become very easy to broadcast propaganda and false information on a global scale. We need to deal with this and remind the citizens across Europe every day that nothing is granted and that the easy answers to complex problems are not necessarily the best. Just remember, the day after the Brexit, where they did a whole campaign about getting money back from Brussels for social insurances. And the day after the Brexit, they said, oh yes, we were wrong. The day after, and they did the whole campaign about that. So sometimes it's right, as Democrats that we are, we have very often, when people have very easy questions, very complicated answers. That makes a difference with a populist. Because he has, when you have very complicated questions, the easiest answer. But they don't care if it's right, if it's legal, if it can be done, but they just want you that it sounds good in your ear. And so we have to fight. And we shouldn't say it's easier to give the easier solution. Keep to your values even if it takes longer and it's more complicated. Never change your goals, your values, and your ideas. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, earlier this morning there was a session on the question how liberals can win elections, about best practices and also about campaign strategies. I tell you what my personal opinion is when it comes to that question. I think that first of all, we need solidarity in our national parties on a very local level, and this solidarity needs to go up on the European and international level too. And I have to tell you, and I insist on that point, we are so proud to have 7 liberal prime ministers. But where are liberals in top jobs on European level? No one is occupied by the liberal candidate for the moment on any liberal European position, and this is not acceptable. We have 7 prime ministers. We are members of a lot of governments. And on Monday, we will elect a new Eurogroup chef, and I hope that at this time, we are able to show that we have common goals and that we have a common interest when it is about liberal top positions also in Europe. And on the local and national level, and I'm very happy to see also the representatives of the Committee of Regions. As a former mayor, you know how important the local level is. You won't win national elections if you are not present on the local level. And if your party does bad work on the local level, you won't be able to be successful on the national level. So what you need, and I can really tell you about my own experience, be successful in elections when you have your members and the people supporting behind you. With unity and solidarity alone, you do not win elections. But, but be assured that even the best campaign is doomed to failure when your members don't support it. And on an international level, we also need unity and solidarity. We need to stick together and form a bloc. We are the bloc against populism and extremism. We are the political movement that puts the citizens in the first row, the party that helps innovation and self-determination. We cannot afford division in our own family. We have been very successful in many elections recently. Here in Holland, in Germany, in Ireland, we have the wind in our back. But to set our sails, we need every seaman on deck to pull on the rope. And in the best case, everybody pulls on the same rope and into the same direction. Thank you.